Welcome back.
Hey, Stanley,
Yeah, George?
how'd you like your own TV show?
Hey, I got something to mail you out.
Oh, you be careful now, you hear? Before you go and say something you're gonna regret for the rest of your days.
Like what? Like the wrong kid died?
Oh, no!
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of The Wrong Podcast Died. It is 1979, but in the present, it is 2025, and we're talking about our New Year's resolutions, and I feel like Rod and I both need to be more active. So what we've decided is we're going to go from Brooklyn. Were we in Brooklyn?
I think Brooklyn, and then we're going to move down through the Bronx.
And we're going to go to Coney Island. So we have a long trip ahead of us, and we're going to do some calisthenics on the way. But we're going to make it to Coney Island, hopefully. And on the way, we're going to talk about this movie. You know what the movie is, Rod?
The Wrong Podcast Died. Come out to play. The 1979 classic, The Warriors.
American adventure, action, thriller, directed by Walter Hill. So it's based on Saul Urnick's 1965 novel of the same name. The film centers around a fictitious New York City street gang who must travel 30 miles from the north end of the Bronx to their home turf on Coney Island in southern Brooklyn after they are framed for the murder of a respected gang leader. Was released February 9th by Paramount Pictures.
The other thing I found was interesting, and this Australia pisses me off. They released it there February 1st, just like Christmas Vacation.
So they had it for 8 days before we got it here?
Yeah, this bullshit. Down under.
Yeah, so the film follows the gang, the Warriors. It's a street gang. There's a call to go see Cyrus, who is the head of the biggest gang in New York. He wants to get all the gangs together and form like this massive gang and run the city. There's, 60,000 gang members, and there's only 20,000 police officers, and there's not nearly that many people in organized crime, so he feels like they can run the city, do whatever they want if they stop fighting over this 10
square feet of turf.
So the Warriors are framed because a rival gang murders him, and the call is put out to find the Warriors and bring them to, justice, I guess. Yeah. He wants them alive. They want him alive, if at all possible. So the film follows them as they try to get back to Coney Island.
And let me go through some of the cast. So we got Michael Beck. He played Swan. He was in a movie that some people might know as Xanadu.
You have to believe we are magic. Nothing can stand in our way.
And then James Remar as Ajax. Now, this guy is probably the most famous one in there. He was in Dexter as Dexter's father. He's been in Mortal Kombat, Raiden, in the Annihilation movie. And then Thomas G. Waits. He was uncredited, technically. He was Fox in this movie. And the big thing horror fans would know him from is the 1982 The Thing. Deborah Van Valkenburg played Mercy. She was in the movie called Streets of Fire and The Devil's Rejects. She was one of the prostitutes in The Devil's Rejects. And David Patrick Kelly as Luther, the leader of the Rogues. This guy's done a lot too. He was in the original Crow, VFW, John Wick 1 and Chapter 2. And then the last one I'll mention is Lynn Thigpen. She's the voice of the DJ. She's been in several things. Pretty recognizable voice from the 80s. She was in Lean on Me. And then she was the narrator for Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Little game show that was on, what was it, on PBS?
Yeah, what do you mean little game show? That's part of so many people's damn lives. That's not little. Like, you still see clips of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. That was on the computer. It was on PBS, the a cappella group.
Take you for a ride on a slow bus to Chinatown. Where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego?
I still see that floating around the internet where, people will be like, these guys were the greatest a cappella group ever.
They were.
Some crazy stuff happens with this film. After reports of vandalism and violence, Paramount Pictures halted advertising and released theater owners from their obligation to show the film. It got a very negative initial reaction, but it's gone on to become a cult classic. Critics love it now. Several spin-offs, including video games, a comic book series. You know, it would gross $22 million on a $4 million budget. I was at Flashback this year in Chicago, Rosemont. They had a Warriors reunion. I think they had like 8 cast members there. And you would not believe the people walking around with handmade Warriors jackets, you know, the sleeveless vests.
Were they leather?
With autographs on them. Yeah, and they looked legit. I watched this film a long time ago. I watched it again working up to Flashback, and I watched it again today. This is a great fucking film.
It is. I've watched it recently, these past few years, at least once or twice a year. It's just so enjoyable.
At the time of this recording, it's not streaming. Luckily, I had it on a DVD that was still sealed that I was able to open and watch. The weird thing about that is, and I don't remember when I watched it on Paramount Plus. It is on Paramount Plus at the time of this recording. We don't have that anymore. The version I watched has like comic book transitions.
That's the director's cut.
Okay, so I was like, I don't remember this, but it's cool because it's, I mean, got that comic book feel to it almost.
I've heard some people that dislike it, but it actually kind of gives you a more of a sense of how these guys are traveling through, because it compares them to this Greek army, basically small army that had to travel back home.
Yeah, through like all the desert or whatever, and to get to the ocean, which plays into the film. It's a pretty simple film. I mean, they escape after the police break up the gang meeting. They just run into gang after gang after gang, and I was like, man, what gang would I want to be in? There was some guys with some yellow jackets that looked really cool. They weren't like a main gang, they were just kind of like a flash through of one of the gangs that were going to be at the meeting, and I was like, that's cool. I didn't see any gangs with big beards. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this film, other than the big gang, most of the gangs were biracial. There was no gangs that were mostly white or mostly black. It was kind of a mixture of everything.
Right. There's one where at first you see an Asian dude and you think, oh, this is going to be an Asian gang. But no, then there comes a black dude and then there comes a white dude. And it was awesome. And that was something that the director had to get done in there because the producers wanted all black gangs. And it was like, that's kind of weird. I mean, there's no such thing as like every gang in New York City is going to be black. They're going to be mixed. It's the mixing pot of America.
Yeah, so I really like that about the film. There was a all-female gang.
I'll give a list of the gangs that they go through to get home. First, it's the Turnbull ACs. I have no clue what the AC stands for or what a Turnbull is. Then they run into this small gang called the Orphans. And then there's the Baseball Furies, which is the craziest gang of baseball player outfits and clown makeup, basically. And then the girl group, the Lizzies. That was like probably one of my favorites. And the last one, they fight the punks, which they're just on roller skates the whole time until they get and the rogues meet up with them. And then the Gramercy Riffs is the major gang.
Is the one gang's the gang they fight in the bathroom?
The punks.
Were they the ones that were with all the arcade stuff? They were in the subway and there was an area that had like the pinball machines and stuff.
Right. Yep. That was them.
I want to be in that gang just so I can play pinball.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Supposedly that gang, the people who are playing them are all stunt actors. That's why they're so freaking huge.
That's probably the most action in the film, that fight scene there, but there are sprinklings of other stuff throughout the movie. They become separated, you know, as the movie goes on. At the beginning, they lose like their head.
Cleon.
Yeah, Cleon's gone. Who knows if he lives or dies? You never really know. Then you have kind of a, not really a fight, but a disagreement on who would be the head. Cleon had said, this guy's the head if I'm not around, or he's the...
Yeah, Swan. He's the war chief.
I don't know if he's in charge if they go to fight another gang.
I think technically, yeah. And then Ajax has to, wants in because he's kind of the meathead muscle, I guess.
Yeah, he's the most unlikable of the whole gang. I feel like he's like, maybe we can get... He doesn't say it like that, but maybe we can get laid on the way back or there all day, every day.
One track mind. Fighting and women. That's all he's got on his head.
And he ends up getting arrested and thrown in jail and getting his ass beat by the cops. I think he even says to the cop, what's he say? Wimp.
Yeah, he calls him a wimp.
Yeah, because he hits him in the face. From the orphans, they pick up a female companion.
Yeah, Mercy. She's just yapping her mouth off, and they're just trying to get past the orphans, which they don't really care too much about. They just don't want to fight.
Yeah, they don't want to waste their energy on them.
And she kind of forces the orphans to ask them to take their colors off, basically, which is a no-no in all gangs that I've ever heard of.
To be able to walk through without there being an issue. Instead, they just blow up a car and then they leave.
So one of the major scenes is one of the warriors called Fox, and they're in the subway. Cops are chasing them, and then Mercy and Fox are taking off in a different direction. And then you see Fox, the cop, throws him in front of a moving subway train, but they actually had to get another actor to be in that fight only because Thomas G. Waits was so unlikable. He was irritating the director so much. From what they've said, he was on drugs like most of the time. And so he got kicked off, and that's why he was uncredited later on. And originally, Fox was supposed to be the love interest with Mercy, and they found that the guy who played Swan was a much better choice. They already had chemistry going.
Not much really to talk about without ruining the film.
No.
I don't want to ruin it because I really want people to go see this one. This is probably, of the films we've recorded and we've talked about, I mean, I love Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. I enjoy Charlotte's Web. But this is probably the one, if you're into serious films, you don't like the comedy, you don't like the fart jokes of Dewey Cox, this would be the film that I would say I would watch first of the things that we've covered. It's a more serious film.
Definitely is. It's like our first gang movie. And it's a lot of fun. You get to see all these colorful gangs. You see these men who are struggling to make it through all these boroughs in New York City. And all they want to do is get home.
I feel like even though people are getting killed and people are getting hurt, it's not like a super hard, like heavy film to watch. It's got enough action and enough, I don't want to say fun stuff, but enough action that you're not like, oh my God, I need a counseling session after this, like you would maybe after American History X.
Right. There's some story to it, but not heavy story, I didn't think.
So, of course, do they make it? Do the Warriors make it from Brooklyn to Coney Island? Do they make it home? Does the gang that framed them get what's coming to them? Do the Gramercy Riffs get justice? Does the movie end with a killer song? All these questions and more will be answered if you just sit down and watch The Warriors. And it's only an hour and 24 minutes.
Hour 33 minutes.
Hour and 33 minutes.
And that's the non-director's cut. I think the director's cut was like maybe an hour 35, 37.
Okay, so a little bit longer for the cuts of the comic book. But yeah, I really enjoy this film. I think we should maybe give some films that if you like this film and you haven't seen these other films, to check them out. I had one, but then I thought of another one that I was like, okay, I love this film, and this is a film that probably a lot of people don't know. But if you like The Warriors, probably know it, but maybe you don't. You said you had one that I probably don't know.
Yeah, you may not know about this one. I don't know.
Do you want me to give my two first, and then you can
give
one of them?
One, and I'll give one, and then you give your last one.
This or that, this or that, this or that, this or that.
It takes two to make a thing go right. It takes two to make it out of sight.
Okay, so my first, and this is my favorite. This is one of my top 5 films of all time. I have a list. I have a top 5 non-horror, and I have a top 10 horror. So this is one of my top 5 non-horror films of all time. And it's called Blood In, Blood Out. It's about the Vatos Locos in LA in the 70s, maybe 80s. But it's about 2 brothers and a cousin. And I just love the film. It's pretty long. You've probably seen clips of it, even if you don't know the film. But I love Blood In, Blood Out. It's just one of my favorite films of all time. It's heavy. It is a very heavy film to sit down and watch.
Yeah, I would definitely have that in my top 5 gang movies that are non-mafia gang related. But yeah, it's a great one.
So what's your movie that we should check out?
For 1993, a movie called Judgment Night, starring Emilio Estevez. It's got Cuba Gooding Jr., Dennis Leary, Stephen Dorff, and Jeremy Piven. Basically what it is these 4 guys who are in Chicago who are going to a boxing event, and they get in traffic and they can't get out. So they go into turn off and they go to a shady part of town, and they witness a crime, and the people see them and then they go after them. So it's sort of like The Warriors without the gang aspect, where you've got these men who are having to run through this dangerous neighborhoods trying to get home, and that's all they're trying to do.
So my other film is actually from the 90s too. and you have to tell me if you know this one. It's from 1992. It's called South Central.
Yes, I think I actually own that movie.
Stars Glenn Plummer, is about the only recognizable person that I know in it. I know there's some other people in it, but I'll give you a little synopsis. During a 10-year sentence for murdering the leader of a rival South Central Los Angeles gang, Bobby Johnson finds religion and rehabilitation with the help of a Muslim inmate. Upon his release, Bobby returns home to find his young son, Jimmy, has joined the Deuces, his old crew. Tensions rise as Bobby struggles to convince Jimmy to leave the gang that was his only family during the painful years his absent father spent behind bars. Yeah, and South Central's it borders on my top 5 a lot. It's always weird. People are like, what are your favorite films? And I'm like, well, Shawshank Redemption, South Central's in there sometimes, Blood In, Blood Out. Like 3 or 4 of my top 5 films are about prison.
What's that say about you, Brian?
I have no idea. I have no idea what it says, but I think I've heard of the film you're talking about. I maybe caught clips of it online. Do you ever get in those rabbit holes where you're like, oh yeah, you'll see a clip of a movie, they'll show it, and you'll be like, I wonder what that movie is. So then you'll search the comments to see if you could find the name of it.
Sometimes it can be so annoying trying to figure out what it is because you've seen it somewhere.
Something new we're doing on the podcast. Have a little music to throw in before it. If you like The Warriors, check out those other films. If there's a film, again, that you think we maybe isn't on our radar that you think we should check out, shoot us a message on social media. Shoot us an email at ilikeitspookyhorrorpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Post on our social media somewhere.
All right. You want to rate this one?
I guess. You want to go first or you want me to go first?
I'll go first if you want.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm the same with you, same boat. I give this a 5 out of 5. This is like one of my favorite gang movies. 5 out of 5 clicking bottles.
That's 2 5s in a row, right? For you?
That's 2 for me, yep.
Yeah, or 2 5s in the last couple movies, yeah. I'm going to go a 4.5. So that'd be a 9 out of 10. 4.5, 10 square feet of turf, or 9 square feet of turf. Got to give the man some, the police always take some.
You know who else likes 10 square feet of turf?
Oh, hard telling.
Our podcast network, the Psychedelic Fighting Punks Network. Can you dig it?
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
So now that we've heard from our podcast network, it's time for some pop culture news, or news in general. And on February 1st in 1979, Patty Hearst, who has been kidnapped from her apartment on February 4th in 1974, God, she was there for 5 years, and later joined her kidnappers in bank robberies, was released from federal prison after her sentence was commuted by President Jimmy Carter.
Oh, Jimmy.
She walked out of federal prison and was driven to her mother's home in Hillsborough, California. Them rich people. And on February 4th, CBS television show Co-Ed Fever, the third of 3 college-themed programs inspired by the success of the film Animal House, premiered for its first and only episode. The show follows the premieres of Delta House on ABC on January 18th and Brothers and Sisters on NBC on January 21st. What do you got?
Some other news I've got. On February 13th was the formation of the Guardian Angels, the crime fighters of New York City. The guys with the red jacket and usually the berets. They're pretty cool. And yeah, they've been out there, and some of the originals are still out there walking the streets, patrolling it. Also on February 13th, Washington State's Hood Canal Bridge breaks up in a windstorm.
On February 14th, the U.S. Embassy in Iran is overrun by Islamic militants who took 21 people hostage, 18 civilian employees, and 13 of the 19 U.S. Marines who were guarding the complex. Yeah, after U.S. Ambassador William Sullivan ordered the surrender of the embassy, the 3 Marines negotiated the release of the civilians, and Iranian Foreign Minister Abraham Yadazi secured the end of the siege. Lord, I'm just reading. And then there was a U.S. Marine, Kenneth Krauth, who had been wounded and taken to the Islamic Revolutionary Prison, was subjected to a 10-minute trial where he was convicted of murder and given a death sentence to be executed on February 22nd. He was returned to the embassy on the 21st and flown out of the country. On November 4th, the embassy would be taken over again and everyone inside would be taken hostage.
Damn.
Jeez, maybe they should put some gates up or some shit.
Yeah.
That's just a crazy story. And then on February 14th, also that year, the IBM 6670, the first American laser printer and scanner for businesses, was introduced by IBM.
I had one ridiculous piece of world news. On February 15th, Paul Shirley, 21, of Australia, sucked a lifesaver for 4 hours and 40 minutes.
You know that a printer could print 36 pages a minute.
Damn.
Yeah, that's not very fast nowadays.
No.
And then on February 19th of that year, for the first time, the U.S. House of Representatives began televising its sessions live. They would go, to like the closed circuit television for Congress, but then, the networks would grab it, and then it would be on cable satellite public affairs network, or as it was known, C-SPAN. I didn't know what that stood for, did you?
No, I did not. Hey, that way you can see the assholes you voted for.
How about some birthdays? You got any birthdays?
Yeah, I had a few births. On February 7th, horror actress Serena Vincent. She was in Cabin Fever. She was a Power Ranger in the Power Rangers List Galaxy. She was the Yellow Ranger.
Go, go, Power Rangers, you mighty morphin Power Rangers.
February 9th, Zhang Ziyi, Chinese actress. She was in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She was born in Beijing. February 11th, R&B singer Brandy. Some of her hits, The Boy Is Mine and Have You Ever. And then February 13th, Mina Savari. She was an actress in American Pie and American Beauty.
Let's get to some more horror royalty.
Oh, I'm sorry. You had something else.
Yeah. On February 21st, so maybe the first one's not, but Jennifer Love Hewitt was born in Waco, Texas. Now, she's in what? I Know What You Did Last Summer. Is she in anything else that's horror related?
God, what's that show? Is the Ghost Whisperer?
I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I Know What You Did Last Summer 2 summers ago. But the big one, Jordan Peele on February 21st. So him and Jennifer Love Hewitt are born on the same day. He's a comedian and filmmaker, and Academy Award winner for Best Screenplay, is born in New York City. And he's Us, Get Out, and what's the one with the animal? Yeah, The Thing in the Sky. Nope.
Yeah, that TV show she did was The Ghost Whisperer.
Oh, hell, I don't know. Missed that one. Wasn't loud enough. I couldn't hear her.
It's on Pluto now. It runs like back and back with Charmed.
So what you got for music news?
I've got quite a bit. So number one U.S. hit was Day Ya Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart. It stays on number one for 4 weeks. In the UK, Heart of Glass by Blondie. Country, Every Which Way But Loose by Eddie Rabbit.
Is that from the movie with Clint Eastwood?
I don't know. I know you would think it had to been written for that, but I'm not 100% sure. Number one soul song was Aqua Boogie, a Psycho Fadala, something like that, by funk band Parliament, founded by George Clinton.
Which is weird because at that time, Le Freak by Chic was number 2 after Rod Stewart. The YMCA was by the Village People, which has probably gone on to, of those songs that you just listed, be the most played and most popular. That peaked at number 2. It never made it to number 1. There was a TV show by Elvis. Was it a show or, a performance? It was on February 11th.
Yeah, because it starred Kurt Russell as Elvis.
43 million people.
So it was like a documentary or something.
Watched that on ABC. So Kurt Russell's, that's crazy.
As Elvis. That'd be awesome, though. I've never seen it.
When I was in Vegas for the Jamboree with John Carpenter, they were some clips of that up there because did John Carpenter do something with that or it come up somehow?
Wow. Well, I'm sure him and Kurt Russell are pretty good buddies. In music on February 2nd, Sid Vicious, the bassist of the Sex Pistols, dies of an apparent overdose. This is about a month after or so after he killed his girlfriend, allegedly.
Wow.
And then February 15th, the Bee Gees won 4 Grammys for the Saturday Night Live Fever soundtrack.
That was before disco died, huh? So interesting. Not the Sid Vicious. I mean, that's interesting, but Jesus, Lord have mercy. Yeah. Well, in sports news, I only have a couple things. In the 29th NBA All-Star game at the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan, the West beats the East 134 to 129. The MVP was David Thompson of the Denver Nuggets, who's a shooting guard. And then on February 18th, in the 21st Daytona 500, Richard Petty wins after race leaders Kyle Yarborough and Donnie Allison collide with each other on the final lap. This is the first 500-mile race broadcast from start to finish.
A little lineup of the top TV of the time. 60 Minutes was number 1, followed by Three's Company. Number 3, That's Incredible. And then tied at number 4 was the show Alice and MASH.
I liked Alice.
Alice was a fun one.
Kiss My Grits. I think that was from Alice.
I think so, yeah.
It was about Mel's Diner, and Alice was a waitress at Mel's Diner. That actually just came up at work a couple weeks ago, so it's kind of weird how the world works. Yeah, and then the top movies of the year. I'm just going to give you the top movies, not what was top then. Kramer vs. Kramer was number 1. It made $106 million. And then the first Amityville horror movie of the, how many is there? Like 80 in the trilogy now?
There was like 3 or 4 in the regular trilogy, and then spin-off after spin-off, just taking the name.
Rocky 2 was number 3. There was a Star Trek motion picture in there. The original Alien. A Muppet movie was number 10. And probably the film that I would watch first out of all of these, The Jerk, was number 8 that year.
Steve Martin.
With Steve Martin. Somebody hates these cans.
Top toys now. I've got Strawberry Shortcake, the scented dolls. One of my sisters had one of those, and yeah, it was this. I don't think the scent lasted that long. And then the Millennium Falcon was released by Kenner. The Barbie Dreamhouse featuring Superstar Ken with his convertible Corvette, big thing that year. And then Bop Bags. Did you ever have a Bop Bag?
Mm-mm.
It was the inflatable bag. You had to blow it up yourself. And then they would have like comic book characters. They have the Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man, Superman. And then you just keep punching them. They're like the clowns. You hit it and then it comes back at you.
No, I'm good. I never had
Man,
those.
what happened with your childhood?
Some other top toys, the Atari 400 home computer system. Guess the price on that sucker.
$60.
$594.95.
Oh.
It was one of the first home entertainment systems, so you had to have some money to have one of them. The Barbie Superstar stage show was only $14.44. You could get a postage stamp for 15 cents, a gallon of gas for 86 cents, and a dozen eggs was 85 cents. So inflation was pretty high. It was 13.3%. I can't remember if this is when the last time inflation was as bad as it has been lately, was back in the late 70s.
Yeah, with the gas gouging and everything.
One crazy number, the Dow Jones, high that year. You know what the Dow Jones is at now?
I have no idea, no.
The Dow Jones closed today at $42,000.
Oh, wow.
In 1979, it closed. Its high that year was $907.
That's quite a difference.
Imagine if you had some of the stock that was on the Dow Jones then, and you bought super cheap because it was $907. I mean, you would be buying it super cheap. What it's worth now after splits, and was Walmart a thing back then?
Yeah.
Was it a publicly traded company?
Yeah, I think so.
If you bought Walmart stock in 1979 with all the splits, what you would have money-wise now. And I actually saw Fran Tarkenton, who used to be the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. He's a Hall of Famer. He is worth, I think they said $600 million. Not because he made money playing football, because he didn't. He invested in Apple.
Nice.
And sold a company that he started to Apple. So that's where he's got all his money. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, just insane that $900 and now it's over 42.
Those guys got rich pretty quick. I mean, it didn't take too long for those to go up.
No, it's been,
especially Apple.
But it's been, 40 years since then. But yeah, maybe your parents had some money and put money in the stock market and then handed it off to you. And they wasn't my parents.
Not my parents either.
That's all the news I got. You got anything else?
Okay, I did get 2 jokes.
Okay.
One clean and one kind of dirty, because that's how I like to keep it. First one, the clean one. I was kidnapped by a gang of mimes once. They did unspeakable things.
I saw that one.
Okay. So and the last one I found was, what's the difference between a gangbang and a joke?
No idea.
Will Smith won't let his wife be in a joke.
He's gonna come and slap you in the fucking face.
Ooh, that's gonna be awesome.
G.I. Jane jump.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
No, it's gonna hurt.
It'll be staged just like the rest of them. Well, don't forget to like and subscribe to The Wrong Podcast Died, wherever you get your podcasts, on the I Like It Spooky podcast universe. Check out the PFPN. Check out our shorts, where we talk about short films that we've been watching. You can catch that on our YouTube. Like I said, I think we're going to start popping it over to the podcast.
Yeah.
Check out Indie Spotlight. Check out how the I Like It Spooky Horror podcast. Check out the Tubi appendages. Who knows where we'll be at by now, because it's in the future or in the past. Ooh. What's that? In the year 3000 by Conan?
Was it the year 3000 or 2000?
I thought maybe it was 2000. I don't know.
Just check out all the great content on the PFPN.
No, just our content.
Oh, just us? Oh, okay.
Yeah, just our
Yeah,
content.
fuck those guys. Fuck Brett, Tony with Ash and Abe.
I mean, we don't have to go that far, because
I do.
What are you trying to start, a gang war?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're on your own. They'll whoop your ass. I'll just stand there and watch. I'm like, I tried to tell him. He don't listen. Yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
And as they say in the land of the rising sun, Jai Kai Made.
He don't even know what the fuck he's saying. He probably just called somebody a bad word.
Will Smith.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
That marks the end of our broadcast day here at The Wrong Podcast Died. Our transmission is powered by a frequency of 800 watts. We will resume our usual programming in 2 weeks. Until then, we bid you good night.